The other day I was in Merida walking along when I passed a newsstand, and what did I see? None other than the Peninsular newspaper with its top headline about the finds of ancient remains of royalty in Balam. So here I am in Balam.
Balam is an ancient Maya city located on the eastern side of the state of Yucatán. The whole site is some 10 square kilometers in size, but only the central part has been excavated, consisting of two plazas. The southern plaza, a smaller plaza, features an astronomical observatory as well as double pyramids and a few other features. The center of the site features several monuments, including a stela dedicated to the king Yucatán Tok. In the northern plaza, there are three large pyramids. The ones to the east and west have not been excavated or restored yet, and remain overgrown. The northernmost building of the northern plaza is the largest and most impressive in all of Balam, and one of the largest and most impressive buildings in all of the northern Yucatán. The Acropolis, as it is known, features a giant staircase decorated with hieroglyphs that leads to multiple levels, and on these levels there are many rooms, large chambers, and most notably, the tomb of Yucatán Tok. The tomb was discovered intact, and features beautiful stucco decorations, paintings, and various artifacts that were buried with the king. It seems that during the 9th century, Balam engaged in war. It's unknown with whom. But the central part of the city is ringed by two defensive walls, and later on, more walls were built inside the center of the city. First, some walls were added to the ceremonial gate of the city, and finally, walls were added to the northern plaza, turning the plaza effectively into a sort of castle with huge pyramids on three sides and a shoddily built, desperate wall on the south. Unfortunately for the residents of Balam, their attempted defense didn't work. The city was depopulated and abandoned for centuries. Now let's take a closer look at the site.
Today I am in Balam. It's very windy. Okay, here is the gate, ceremonial gate, and they would do certain processions along this sock bay that would end with people passing through the gate to enter the city, especially when there were people visiting from other cities. And over here is the round building that is thought to be the tower from which astronomical observations would be done, and there would probably be some priests and other ritual spaces associated with that here. And also they might have lived in this building. Here we have the front of the astronomical observation pyramid, and next to it there's a double structure. That's called the Twins, and it's thought that that would probably have something to do with the hero twins of Mayan mythology. Those pyramids, they form together what's known as the Southern Plaza, and it extends over there. There's some more pyramids over there that also date from the post-classical period that they didn't really have much information, I believe, when they excavated them. And over there's another plaza, and it's separated by the ceremonial ball court, which has a pretty low angle, similar to Uxmal. And I believe that this one, I'm not sure if it would have originally had a ring. It seems like there may have been room for a ring there. They often have been removed from these ball courts, especially in the Maya world, because they're very fragile and prone to breaking, and often they have some inscriptions on them. So they want to preserve and protect them, and so those often end up in museums. There is a very large structure here. Now I'm in the North Plaza, and on the east side and the west side, behind those trees, there's two very large pyramids which haven't been excavated. If we go this way, you get an idea of the way that they look when they're found, because of all sorts of burrowing animals and the forces of nature. Oftentimes it collapses and there's just a pile of loose stones and debris You can see that here there's a staircase, and it could be that if you remove the outermost layer of stones, that there would still be a perfectly preserved staircase under there. Here on the back of the ball court, we see there's some kind of room, and this one has a slightly different form of arch, very wide, slightly different than the others. Normally there was a storage room attached to ball courts where they would keep the ball and the uniforms and all kinds of other rituals, but that tended to be, in many cases, on top of one of the sides of the ball court. So these rooms could be for something else. Here's another one. Oh, wow. Have all the way there. The second room in here. Oh, there's bats living in here. Okay. I will not disturb the bats. You can see that this was walled up at some point. Used to be open doors. Let's climb to the top. It's a very large stone over there. Yeah, this looks like it may have been where they kept the equipment. You can see it doesn't face the court, so it wouldn't be a room where people could view it. There's another building over there where those people are standing on the other side. Here people would have observed the rituals. There you get a sense of scale of how big the court is. The Mayan ball game didn't involve a lot of running. It was more similar to tennis. You kind of had people standing in strategic positions, and they would wait for the ball to reach them, and then they would sort of, lunge, hit it with their hips, do some slides. But it was sort of sporadic activity. And these people often wore very heavy costumes and sometimes wooden belts to protect them from the ball when it hit their hips. So they didn't move around that much. These bicycles are leaning against this large unexcavated pyramid that's on the western side of the northern plaza. You can see that it would have been quite an impressive structure. Some parts of it are still intact. That looks like outer cladding. And you can see that it would have been originally very smooth, but all of those rocks have collapsed from there down to here. Over here, through these trees, is the largest and most impressive structure in all of Balam, and it is called the Acropolis. To say that it's a pyramid is understating it, because it's a very complicated structure. It has a pyramid in the middle, but it also has lots of rooms, and these rooms have very tall doorways. So they may have played some sort of ceremonial function, may have been part of the royal palace. There is a king buried up there, and I'll go there in a second. But I believe that there are dozens of rooms here. Some of them were found with inscriptions and paintings. Oh, this is a very, wow. This is a huge chamber. Very, very tall ceilings. And over here, some kind of platform. That's definitely not a bed, because it's not the right shape. Something would have been there. There's a wasp's nest, so I won't stay too long in this room. In this room, you can see the remnants of some sculpture. I'm not sure if that would have been from a facade or if it would have been something else, but some carved stones, and once again, an enormously tall ceiling. Walking down the length of the Acropolis. Let's see, there's a couple more of these rooms. This one has a huge bench, possibly a table for an altar of some kind. And you can see there would have been more outer decoration to this building as well, with more intricately carved stones and columns on the outside of the door. You can see they aren't preserved everywhere. This one is prohibited to enter, but I'll pop my camera in there and see what it looks like. It looks like it's been not cleaned as much as the other ones. And finally, one more. Also prohibited to pass. But it looks like there's some sort of very elaborate structure in here. I thought that was wood at first because it's very fine stones. You can see that there's something, looks kind of like a table. It's being held up by these legs. And those look like they're made of stone. And that's a giant stone slab. That resembles, oh, there's no way down here. That resembles some types of tomb, maybe. And there is a king buried up at the top, so this might be that these rooms were for other kings or other important figures in the history of the city. This is a very interesting city in the northern Yucatan that used to be a regional capital. It used to be filled with many interesting temples and buildings in a kind of unique arrangement. This is the Acropolis and the main staircase of the Acropolis. And you can see that there's a ton of different rooms and chambers on both sides. Some that are even being restored. There's workmen over there and up here, and some people working on the stucco here. And not all of these would have been visible at the same time. Up there we have a very impressive building that I'll show you in a second. And that was covered up with stones when this was first found, which is why it's so well preserved. And so this building would have been built up over time. This city was originally first inhabited in the pre-classic period, so between 200 and 700 BC, though it reached its height in the classic period, and its population kept steadily growing up until about the year 900, when the Maya collapse occurred, and then the site was pretty much abandoned. Here you can see people working to preserve the stucco, cleaning it. Overall, this site has some of the best preserved stucco in the Mayan world. Here you can see some of the writing. And this is the sort of stuff that would be on many other pyramids that has mostly disappeared. But here you can still see it pretty clearly. Not only would there be these sort of stucco decorations with writing, there would also be entrances to doorways to rooms, sometimes surrounded by writing or other decorations. There's a style of architecture called the
Chinese style.
One of its main features is that it has these sort of very elaborately carved doorways, often in the shape of the mouth of a monster. And that's something we see here. There's also elements of the Puk style of architecture and several other styles, which makes this kind of a unique site. You have Peten architecture, all from different regions of the Mayan world. Here you can see some other rooms, and these may have been buried originally by an outer layer of the pyramid. They look very well preserved, but it gives you an idea of how the Acropolis would have evolved over time. Here you can see some conservation work being carried out, and they're cleaning the stone and preserving the stucco. Here's more rooms. There would have been dozens of rooms in this building. So behind me is something totally unique in the Mayan world for how well it is preserved, and that is the entrance to the tomb of a king. And you can see that the way that this is structured is it has the mouth of a jaguar. The city is named after the jaguar, here being the teeth, and underneath the teeth you have these this god of death who has antlers and represents the underworld, and then you have the tree of life which is coming out from the underworld, going up like that, and it bears certain fruits. There is Chuck, the rain god, and he also represents the terrestrial world. And above we have the third world, the heavens, and there are a bunch of figures there. There's someone standing, seated cross-legged. There's a king. Over here we have a woman sitting. And then over here we have two unique figures in the Mayan world. They're winged, and they're called the angels of Balam. And along a different axis to this up and down vertical set of three worlds, there's also the entrance through this mouth. This is the mouth of a jaguar with its teeth there, here, here, and here on the sides. And if you enter into a different world, the spirit world. And in there the king was buried. And along the walls in there, there's all kinds of paintings. You can still see one a little bit over here. And it's all depicting religious motifs having to do with the king's passage into the next world, the afterlife. I've seen a replica of this before at the Museum of Anthropology in Mexico City, and that's quite impressive. But to see the original one in the original stucco, so well preserved, it's quite a sight to behold. And the reason this is also well preserved is all of this was buried in stone by an outer layer of the pyramid, probably that would have been sort of like where those stairs are. Here you can even see some of the wall that was built around this structure, possibly intentionally to protect it. The king on that side would have died at the end of the 8th century. Over here we see another grand chamber that's currently being restored. Gives you a sense of how big the king's chamber would have been, because it's symmetrically opposed. It's not as well preserved, but you can still see that there's all kinds of elaborate carved stones and stucco work here. Here you can see this man is very carefully applying a super smooth layer of plaster here, where the original plaster floor would have been. Interestingly, there's a passage under the stairs that goes to the other side. At the top of the pyramid, here I can see down into some other room there, and it has round columns, which is an unusual feature before the arrival of the Toltecs. Not unheard of, but still just uncommon. This looks to be at the same level as the burial chamber, and it looks like there must be something else that's well preserved there. Presumably there would have been also a staircase to ascend the pyramid from the north side. And in fact, there could be buildings all over here, because the site is some 10 square kilometers and only the two central plazas have been excavated. So underneath these trees there could be more temples and buildings, such as that one over there, which I didn't notice before.
You can see off in the distance, that's Jaguar.
Over there you can see the southern plaza and the astronomical pyramid, the twin pyramids. And there's another pyramid under that patch of raised trees over there that hasn't been excavated. Oh, there's an iguana in there. And over there are bags of cement left over from the initial construction of the Acropolis. Here you can see that this outer wall would have originally been clad with bricks, and I think that this may be writing, inscriptions and hieroglyphs. There's more stones like that here and there, which indicate that they would have gone all the way up to the top and covered all of these walls. So if that was writing, that's quite a lot of writing. And if it collapsed, I imagine it's quite difficult to piece it all back together, especially in the right order. Quite a puzzle. Here is the east structure, structure 3. As you can see, it's not really excavated and they aren't really sure what's inside. But it's 110 meters long, 55 meters wide, and 24 meters high. Apparently in 1886, the French explorer Desiree Charnay could still see the remains of a temple on top and a room. And there was a severed head modeled in stucco and fragments of an inscription and wood. However, they found a stucco mask when they were more recently excavating it. It may have been the one that was described. He said that he dug up a floor and he found some remains and a figure that was painted entirely black, which he attributed to being related to Balam, the black jaguar after which the site is named. And it's thought that that was the name of the city, but it's also thought that may have been the name of one of its kings in ancient times. The king that they found here was not Balam. He had a different name that was preserved in inscriptions. So it remains a bit of a mystery. Here you can see the remains of a wall. And this seems to have been one of the last-ditch efforts of the people of Balam to prevent an external force from conquering them. They built it here just bisecting one of the plazas. And it seems that it was built out of kind of loose rubble, not so well constructed. And it seems that they were getting desperate. There was 2 other walls outside of the city surrounding it. So if they had to build a third one at the last minute, you know, things were getting pretty bad. Here you can see some of the outer defensive walls of the city. They would have originally been 2 meters tall, taller than a man, and there it would have been 2 to 3 meters wide. And here it probably would have been some sort of gate or some defensible position. And over here is the actual ceremonial gate to enter the city on processional days. And here's another set of walls you can see that may have been added later. It seems that the defenses of the city got thicker and sturdier as time progressed, indicating that there would have been quite some warfare that the people of Balam were afraid of. Outside of this wall, you can see there would have been yet another wall. So it would have been quite difficult for invaders to get to the city. Well, I am back at the astronomical observation tower, and I think that means it's time to go to Koba. Join me next time on Pyramid Review.
If you'd like to support this channel, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com in the link provided below the video.